And we are live.
Hey everybody, it's Razor from the Horror Syndicate, and this is Discourse. We are live. We're going to talk about some Pet Sematary, maybe the remake, maybe the sequel. We'll see what we've got time for. I'm a big fan of Pet Sematary, always have been, more so now as an adult than I was as a child. Because when I was a child, I liked to torment my brother because he was scared of a Pax cow. Uh, anyway, tonight we've got Keith with us
Hello.
as usual. Am I breaking up?
No.
Is it unstable? Is it safe?
You're
Jared's
fine,
with
man.
us again.
Hello.
And of course, Nathan Thomas Miller and Seth will be with us shortly. Nate, say hello.
Hello, Nate.
The crowd loves you. So we all have been talking about different the topics we come up with are things we want to talk about. And I think Seth was the one that brought up Pet Cemetery, if I'm not mistaken.
I think
Yeah.
so too. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's not here, so that makes total sense.
Yeah.
No, he's he'll be with us soon. Pet Cemetery, 1989, based off a Stephen King book, Speak of the Devil. That's not the book. That's Seth just popped up. He's the devil, so it was 1 second. He'll be with us. I want him to talk a lot tonight. I don't know about you guys.
It's his topic.
It is, and he's Mr. Quiet over here. Seth, welcome for joining.
He's probably joining audio.
Yeah.
In audio.
Hi.
Hey, what's up?
How you feeling?
Terrific.
Okay. So we just started. We barely just got through introductions, and this is your topic, right? It's Pet Cemetery. You just finished an article that was posted up yesterday.
Yep.
About how Pet Cemetery you view it differently as an adult. I think I even mentioned that a couple weeks ago. Being an adult and having a family and children, it kind of changes you a little bit, changes your perspective.
Yeah.
You want to kind of go in on that to start off?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's it's I've been kind of interested to know how other people feel about it. You know, I watched Pet Cemetery 1 and 2 a lot, when I was younger. I especially love part 2, and it was always a really cool horror movie, and it was always very tragic, but it never affected me. And then after my youngest was born, I got it on DVD finally, and I went to watch it one night when they were in bed, and the whole thing with Gage, like it hit me. It hit me harder than it did ever before, and there was a period of time where I couldn't even watch it.
Could we say it hit
But
you like a truck?
yeah, yeah, it was. I think it was mostly
That's a little
like
too far, I think.
And but it makes sense though.
yeah, especially when they would show like the baby pictures, like Lewis and Rachel holding Gage when he was first born. It's like that's all too real, So
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, when I was a kid and watching it, came out when I was 9, I think, and my stepdad was an avid Stephen King reader, so we had the book on hand. I read the book when I was 10 or 11 after I known the movie came out, but he bought it on VHS shortly after it came out, and we would watch it a lot because it was just a fun story at the time. But like I said at the opening, my brother was scared to death of Pascal, so we would torture him and just we'd have the tape pause and Brandon, come in here.
It
And there's
won't
Pascal.
work.
Yeah, he'd be leading Lewis to the Pet Cemetery. But yeah, well, I agree. Watching it as an adult with children, it does kind of change you a little. It didn't do as much as for me, I guess. I don't know. I just don't care about my kids. No, no, I'm joking. I totally care about my kids. No, I just I don't know.
Do what now?
I think because like after reading your article and thinking about it, because Brian, our old host, used to talk about that also about how after he became a father, it really affected him. And I do now think about what I would do in that situation, but also I've witnessed a lot of loss. I lost my wife and my mom very early, and the real life is way more than watching it on a movie.
Oh yeah.
I definitely wouldn't bury my kid in some cemeteries and come back as some creep. That way that cat came back wrong. Come on. I wouldn't do that to a person. What about you guys?
This was probably the maybe second or third time I've watched it. I remember watching it when I was a kid a couple times, but I didn't remember a lot about it. So pretty much the only storyline I had in my head was from the remake that I saw. What was that, last year when it came out?
Yeah.
Yeah, the original compared to that thing, the original is so much better. The characters are better, the reactions are better, the way the story's laid out's better. Like the one thing that pops out most to me more than anything is the dad's reaction after the accident, like in the remake compared to the original. Like the remake like completely like cut it out, and then the original like he's literally like screaming bloody murder.
Yeah. Yeah, Lewis really what's the guy's name? I can't think of his name. That plays Lewis.
Dale Midkiff.
Yeah, Dale Midkiff really he's not a great actor or anything, but man, he was great as Lewis. And coming into the remake, I was expecting great performances, and they weren't bad, but the actor that plays Lewis is actually a really great actor in my opinion. Um, but yeah, they took a lot of emotion out of the remake, and I don't know. I think there's a lot of getting to know the family, getting to know Judd in the original that was so much better because first of all, Judd's a piece of shit neighbor. He's awful. I mean, think about it. Like the cat's dead. Well, oh, my daughter's gonna be terribly upset about that. That's really thin and flimsy. Pets die all the time.
Well,
And
let's take her somewhere else then.
Yeah, let's fucking resurrect the cat. Like, and he knows better because his dog came back rabid.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, dude.
Also, what Mary Lambert was explaining that the Judd is actually the bad angel in the story, and Pascal is the good angel. He's the one he should be listening to. Yeah, but I love that's my favorite Stephen King book. One of my favorite other films. It's just hard to replace the '89 film. Like I said, you got really good actors in the remake, but they come off very bland.
Yeah.
And I actually, Dale Midkiff is like my least favorite thing about the original because he is kind of a stiff actor. I don't think he's that strong. He's probably the weakest link in the whole film.
He was better in Love Potion #9.
Or Elvis or whatever. We played Elvis that one time. But yeah, that scene where with the gauge, of course, that's the scene everybody goes to. And I feel bad. I didn't even know Seth wrote the article because I wish I'd read it before this podcast because I'd like to read that. But that scene always affected me, even before I was a father. But I think in general, once we become parents, it totally changes us. I get far more emotionally affected by things. I cry a lot more during movies now. The stuff hits you real, like just the littlest things can hit you. So even in the remake, there's little things because, somebody turn on the TV. Can you hear that?
I can hear something.
Yeah. I think somebody turned on the TV downstairs real loud. I gotta tell them to turn it off. Hang on. Talk amongst yourselves.
It's all good.
Talk amongst ourselves.
And I know this conversation might kind of interweave between the new one and the old one, but
it will.
Did
you watch the new one yet?
I did, and
good.
I watched it the other day, and I don't think that there was kind of, like you were kind of saying, you felt the acting was a little cold. I think it was meant to be that way. Like the dad that played Lewis Creed in this one, I don't remember his name, but he's been in a lot of stuff.
Jason Clarke, I believe is his name.
He had this just this look on his face the entire time, of like almost like a zombie. Like
Yeah, but why would they do that from the? Why would they do that from the beginning though? Make him cold, and Judd was I like John Lithgow's great, but why they make him so cold? And he just wasn't even likable. I loved Judd in the original movie. Plus, the accent kills.
Well, I kind of thought his personality changed. You know, obviously when Pascal died, and then it started escalating when Church died, and like in this new one. But then, spoiler alert, when the child dies, he like literally became a zombie. Like, I think he did a really good job acting that way.
It's more like
What are we talking about? Sorry, I was gone.
We're talking about the acting in the remake.
Why the characters
were
The
played.
portrayal of Lewis in the remake I thought was very good because he was more like automaton after the kid died, and like
he's more in a trance and like shocked.
Yeah, I mean, everyone grieves differently.
Yeah, he was very in shock.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've watched the remake a couple of times this week just to give it a fair share because I remember liking it when I saw it at the theater. But and I know I gave it up to Kevin and Dennis, who they were trying to make it different. They were trying to make it their own instead of just copying the same script, same book, same film. Right. But I think those choices, some of the choice, I like the switch to Ellie because I didn't know what was going to happen, and I like a lot of things they did with Ellie being verbal and the mask and all that, the being verbal, you know, the things that she was able to do because they couldn't get a 2-year-old to do that in the original. I knew the trailer, yeah. I mean, it wasn't a shock. Okay. I just liked that it was. Once that happened, I didn't know where they were going to go because all bets are off at this point. They have a new direction, which I like. Totally. But the thing that I think that they made a mistake on is they downplayed. From the novel, I think right from the beginning, it's established that Judd is the father figure that Lewis has always wanted. He immediately likes them from the moment they meet him. And in this movie, he's not even there when they first meet Judd. Like it's just Ellie and Rachel go off and find the Pet Sematary, or Ellie does, and then Judd shows up, and then that
comes off as a creeper too.
Yeah, and the first time you see Judd and Lewis together, it's at dinner, and it's a brief scene, and then the next thing you know, he's like, "Hey, come here, you're dead. Your cat's dead." You know, I mean, there was like no relationship there at all.
The character building was poor in the remake.
That's what. Yeah, in that aspect, it did kind of escalate fast in that aspect.
And there are things in there also that, again, this is supposed to be like a father figure to him, and I get the air that he kind of looks up to Judd as a younger man does to an older man. He wants to hang out on the porch and talk and drink beer. That's something a lot of young men, you know, you want to hang out with the elders and talk to them, hear their stories, and you know that. I didn't get that in this film, and I missed that about the Judd Lewis because that's so much a critical part of why he does what he does and everything that goes on. So that was one thing that was really bothering me about the remake was even the way Lewis treats Judd in the movie, in the new one, where Judd's like, come here, and Judd and Lewis is kind of like, this guy's annoying or something. It's kind of like, he's, hey, we got to do this tonight. And he's like, all right, like real, like contradict. I don't know. He's just patronizing or something. Like there's that relationship isn't there in this book, in this film, which really, to me, but this Judd is a different character of this one in that I noticed that they're making him like he's been hunting the Wendigo. He's a hunter. He's got all these guns. He's got a deer head. So I think it was suggested maybe he thought that was the Wendigo and he killed it, or he's got all this books, all these stuff about Native American history. And so this is somebody who's been obsessed with this. And the thing is, he also doesn't want to, I think this is his enemy. He doesn't, when he goes to bury the cat, he's already got a spot laid out in the regular Pet Sematary. And then he hears the voice, that sweet smell from the Micmac burial ground is calling them and makes him decide to go pick the cat up and take him there. But at first he's not going to take him there. So it's like he is out of his own, like the decision to take Lewis there isn't entirely his own in the remake.
Yeah, but the beginning, the first maybe 45 minutes of the movie to an hour seems rushed. Where
Yeah,
in the first original movie, they have a lot of character building. And then, I mean, the last 10, 15 minutes or so, everything with Gage happens. And they got to that point in the new movie. And it was more closer to the midway point, I think, where they spent more time with Ellie because she was much older. There's not. I don't think there's much they could do with what 2-year-old Gage,
yeah.
but Ellie was what, like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old.
And that's where
And
the
I think when
strength in the remake is in Ellie. And
yeah,
what's the girl's name that plays her?
I don't even know.
I do not remember.
She's really good in this.
I've seen her in other
Yeah,
things.
Yeah.
yeah, and that's I think was their goal was to spend more time with her because the very end of the movie, the original was Gage's, but it was only he goes and kills Judd and plays with Judd, I should say, and then his mom comes and he plays with her too,
But
and
yeah,
that was the last 10 minutes or so, but they spent a good 30 minutes, maybe more, on Ellie. And that if there was the movie probably could have been a lot longer if they would have built the characters and the relationships up more, and may have been actually
I
better.
think they said they did, but they cut it out. They had to sacrifice that stuff. But honestly, I look at it like I don't, because you're right. The first half of the movie is very quick. Scenes don't last very long at all. So boom, boom, boom. There's no, like, even when they arrive to the house, there's nothing magical about it. Like,
Mm-mm.
Ellie walks up, sees the house, walks in by herself, and then boom, right to the next day, he's going to work. And it's like
Yeah,
so much is rushed and missed upon to get to these changes they want to make, but the changes to me don't pay off to lose Pascal. Pascal's completely,
yeah.
like, I mean, totally just kind of, he's there. It's like he doesn't feel like a real presence in the film,
I feel like part of
like he
it's
did in the original.
I feel like part of it's the studio too, though. They know people like general moviegoers aren't going to want to sit and watch a movie as long as like the original Pet Cemetery. Like they
What's
just
the difference of the runtime on these? Does anybody know?
um
Roughly the same.
I would
let's
imagine they're around the same
Roughly the
length.
same.
okay, the new one's
Hour and a half, hour and 40.
the new one's 141. The original is 143. I thought the remake, maybe it's just how it's edited. The remake feels like an hour and they hit that to me.
It's because everything was rushed. It was
Just
Yeah.
all it was like
moves.
a breakneck pace. They paced it really poorly, where the original they paced it very well. And I mean, there were times it seems like they were trying. We talked about this after it was released last year, Jared, with Mike and Brian. There were times that it felt like they were trying to stick closer to the novel in certain parts, but they also failed at that. And I don't know. I think they would have. I think it would have worked better if they would have. I think that was one of my favorite things about the movie, other than the ending is so great, with Judd and in his house with Gage. But and I prefer Gage being the one that dies, as morbid as that may sound. But I prefer it because of everything that
Very
happens after
morbid.
Gage.
Yes.
Yeah, it's way more morbid. Uh, some of the stuff that happened with Ellie was great too. Like when he's brushing her hair in the bath, and he finds the staples. And but anyway, like I think the relationships they had, they felt like a real because these people didn't feel like they were married. They didn't feel like they were their real kids. Like it felt like Blaze Birdall was actually Lewis' daughter, and Miko Hughes was his son. They felt like a real family, and because they showed them doing things as a family, and they didn't do that as much in this. And I think it's a big fail when it comes to character development, which to me is very important when it comes to movies. Is you got to care about the characters. I didn't care about any
Everything,
of them.
especially with Pet Sematary, that's everything because it is the
Mm-hmm.
relationships and that family. I remember just absolutely loving the Creeds when I read the book,
Mm-hmm.
and like actually sad and heartbroken by the end of the book, just because I hated that the book ended because I just
Yeah.
loved reading about that family and what happens to them, and I just didn't feel that way about this family. And there's so many things missing that again aren't developed. Lewis's problems with Mr. Creed and her parents, or not
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Creed, but
Yeah.
Rachel's parents.
Rachel's
His,
parents.
There's
his in-laws. Yeah.
Yeah, his in-laws, like that is such a critical, like so much about drama and storytelling is based on conflict, and there's no conflict. There's like even Rachel and Lewis have a even in the book and in the original film kind of this combative at times, where she, her reservations over death and Lewis and all that, it creates a bunting of heads at times in the book, in the novel, and that's not in this film, where they had their arguments and there's tension between them, and then the whole great line, like some of Stephen King's best writing, I think, is in this book, and like this line in his screenplay was stuff like that. The soul of a man's heart is stonier. Is like, there's so much about secrets. He says that he said women are supposed to be good at keeping secrets, so men are better. And it's like men's hearts are tougher to break through. And when you get into a man's heart, so
the soil is stonier.
Yeah, it's stonier. Like a man's heart is stonier, and man has secrets. And Lewis is very secretive. All the things he does, even like the whole thing where they leave at the first time and he's at home by himself when the cat dies, it changes that dynamic of everybody's there and he goes bears it while they're sleeping. Instead of they're gone, well, what's he done while they've been gone? He's keeping secrets, him and, Judd. So there's so much. I understand that I respect that they wanted to try to change it, but the things they sacrificed wouldn't take that much time.
I was just going to say, even passage of time was sacrificed.
Yeah.
Based on what you're saying, because they go through different holidays and, the leaves change. You don't feel that. It feels like it happens really fast in the new one.
What's Seth have to say? Seth.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, kind of going back to the character of Judd that was mentioned a little bit earlier about, just him as a neighbor. One of the things that the movies unfortunately can't really seem to translate is the idea that he's being sort of like compelled by the land, by the Wendigo or whatever is going on. And, they hinted at that a little bit in the remake with, like we were saying earlier, where they're going to bury church and then he hears like that voice or gust of wind, and then that catches his attention. But that's why I love the book so much. The book, it has, being a book, it has the ability to take its time and to explain things, and you can go deeper into someone's mind and their experience and stuff like that, whereas with film, you're limited to time. And
but would you go ahead?
No, go ahead.
Oh, that's what I asked you. To me though, I read the book in like 89, 90 or so around there, and then I just re-listened to it. I got the audio book that Michael C. Hall read, which is really excellent. I wish he'd played Lewis in the remake, because I always liked him anyway. But listening to the book, I don't think Stephen omitted too much in his screenplay for the original film. Like it felt like, other than his wife, Judd's wife, not being in it, and characters like Missy being kind of mixed up with the truck driver and the whole suicide thing, and like what you do usually to save time in film, change things, like morph things, give different characters different things. But as I listened to it, I was like, wow, he really did stick pretty close to his novel. He didn't sacrifice a lot, and it was actually a really good adaptation. I guess I don't know how many films he's adapted that they've actually made with his screenplays, but I think he did a really good job on the screenplay.
Oh, absolutely. Sorry, what?
Wasn't this the only one that he did a screenplay for?
No, I think he did a screenplay for Silver Bullet as well. I know there was more that he did. He was involved with quite a bit of film back in the day. But no, Mary Lambert's film is like the perfect adaptation of that book. And it just only like minor things that were different, like Nate was saying there. But, speaking of like Judd's wife too, I mean, that was part of like the motivation for Judd, trying to save Ellie, with the news about her cat too, was because in the book he felt like he had a debt to pay to Lewis for Lewis helping out his wife.
And in the remake, they kind of painted as Judd did it because Ellie had become like this shining light in his life that had been missing for years, and I like, then you should have shown that. Like it was not that much. The closest moment of that is when she's a witch. She goes, "I put a spell on you," and he goes, "You already have," which is a great, beautiful little moment in line. But that's about it that we just that they establish. That they established that Ellie has touched Judd's heart. That I mean, we do see tender moments with the two, like 2 or 3, where she goes to his house, and then of course he pulls a stinger out, which is. I mean, there's things in this movie that were in the novel that weren't in the '89, like the bee sting and all that. Although it was Gage, but if you're going to commit to the relationship is between Ellie and Judd this time, then really commit to it. And to me, that's what because I would have totally gone with that if the relationship instead of Lewis and Judd had been maybe you go that way, like maybe Lewis isn't giving Ellie the attention or the father attention because of his job that he needs. I mean, that's a route they could have went, where Judd becomes that father figure, grandfather that's missing, and they do have that strong bond, which would propel Judd even more to go do what he does to bring her back, and to save that cat and all that. But they could have given 5-10 more minutes. 5 minutes is all you really needed.
Oh, and
one
Judd
scene could have done it.
He was thrust into their lives rather than build gradually. Like he came over and introduced himself as a neighbor, like neighbors generally should, rather than being a creep in the woods. Like he was, that really bothered me. His introduction to the Creeds was like, I get that he was helping Ellie and he helped her out and all that stuff, but like as a mom in 2019 walking up on some old guy down on the ground with your daughter. It's like, what the fuck is this? Like you don't know that guy. Now him coming across the street and introducing himself as the neighbor is way better and not as creepy and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but like I would trust that dude.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, they did a poor job, made poor decisions. I think and this is becoming a trend with remakes and sequels, just to be different, to divert people's expectations of what things are. I think that's what they're doing. And I think that's what they did.
Like I said, I applaud anybody who tries to do something different with something. I mean, they try to make it their own, but at the same time, it has its moments. But overall, it feels it lacks the heart, the charm, the personality. And even like when they try to do they instead of shooting actual locations when they make the trip to the burial ground, they did it on sets, so it's very surreal and foggy and definitely not. There's a falseness to it where some of the strengths about Pet Sematary is even though it's supernatural, is how realistic it is. Mm-hmm. The film is story, everything about it is very real, which makes it even more terrifying.
Yeah, that's one thing that stood out to me when they go to the burial ground in the remake. One, it's so damn dark, I can't see anything in that movie.
Yeah.
But two, when they get to the burial ground, like it literally looks like a stage play.
Yeah, it does.
Because it's a set.
It's a set.
Nothing beyond the trees. It's
the burial ground in the original looks so much better. Like, I mean, someone literally went out there and just stacked a bunch of rocks. But
you also get to see bird's eye view shots of the burial ground in the original movie, and even in the sequel, where you don't get to see that in this other one. You only see the static shot. You see a side shot. Yeah, it sucks. One thing I wanted to bring up that I almost forgot that I absolutely wanted to talk about was building the characters. You do get very personal with them, especially Rachel with her sister Zelda, which was really like chopped in half in this. Because that was one of my favorite things about the '89 version was the traumatic experience, and not just traumatic. It was also a relief of pressure of her sister and her sister's sickness and dying and all that. But also, there's a scene where Pascal dies in the '89 version, where Lewis has a moment to himself and he's talking to Pascal. Not so much as a scratch today, I promised Rachel, or something along those lines. You don't even get anything like that. Just intimate moments to get to know the character a little bit more. You get nothing of that in this movie. It's a cold, dark movie that really, when I found out it was being made, I was like, this is a movie that never needed to be remade, in my opinion. And I still feel that way. Although now, like I actually kind of dig some of these mini series that they do, like The Shining or It, just because they try to follow more closely. I'd love to see a mini-series 4-hour version of Pet Cemetery, recast and everything like that, just for TV. I think that'd be fun.
I think it should have been a sequel. It should have just been a Pet Sematary movie with the daughter dying and things like that. Because again, I like little additions. I like the kids playing, the procession going out there, but even like the path. The path is gone. They don't have the path that sparks the curiosity of the family. It's just like she just walks. Just all these little things that made it so colorful, made the book so colorful, made the film so colorful. It's gone, and it's like, I mean, those guys had the talent. I mean, Starry Eyes was the film they made, and it's a brilliant film. I don't know.
Yeah, Starry Eyes is great.
How much of this? Yeah, I don't know how much of this was. I don't think they didn't write the screenplay for this one, but I think they were very involved in it. But it was just a really, like I said, I watched it 3 times this week just trying to give it a chance. And again, I like little things. I like Ellie as a zombie. I think it's heartbreak. I have a daughter same age as her, so that hit me to when he's having to brush her hair and when she lays next to him in bed and wants him to stay with her. He's like, she wants him to be there, but he can't. Like, he realizes this isn't my daughter. This isn't really.
And he plays that part.
He's afraid of her.
He played that part really, really well. And
yeah,
one of the best scenes in that entire movie for me was the scene when Rachel comes back and he's like, "Hug your daughter." It felt almost like it felt like a cult almost.
Well, that's what I mean. What I was alluding to earlier, he was just cold and like kind of like in a zombie mode. Like, this is your daughter, hug her. She's here, love her.
Yeah, the world's different. I wasn't ready to let her go, or I wanted more time. I mean, there are strong ideas and strong things in it. I think we're spending too much time on the remake. We should talk about the '89 version, but I guess because I've watched it so many times trying to find good in it, and I did see good. I mean, I like little things about it. The little girl is phenomenal. I still think it's unfortunate that John Lithgow's kind of not given the chance to play the Judd that we know.
That was what I was most excited for when the trailers dropped. I love John Lithgow. And I was like, I'm watching this just for John Lithgow. I don't care. And then, I didn't get a very big character.
But yeah,
or at least able to make the character his own.
Yeah. Want to talk about the sequel? I'd never seen the sequel until yesterday. I think, I watched it yesterday. It's freaking awesome. I think I like it more than the first one almost, just because it's fun.
Oh, good lord.
Dude, Clancy Brown in the sequel is just insane, and he's so great. I love how over the top he is.
Yeah, Clancy Brown pretty much makes the sequel, in my opinion. So does the Bully in a way, but I think, coming off of the '89 movie, which we're not done with. Well, I'm sure we'll talk more about that one in the remake. But yeah, talking about the sequel a little bit, I like the sequel too, and the Scream Factory is really great. I'm glad they brought Mary Lambert back, or however that worked out, to make the sequel. And one of my favorite scenes in that was the scene where on Halloween, when they're talking about, the bully's telling the story about what happened with the Creeds. Of course, he's wrong, but like, that's such a great scene. It's like, God, man, the legend of the Creeds. How cool is that? Like, it's like your urban legend of the town now, and the house is still right there, right next to the Pet Cemetery that anybody can visit. And I'm curious to know why. I guess probably money. Why they didn't make a third or a fourth, because they could have made a lot of Pet Sematary movies if they wanted to. I think.
I want Mary Lambert to come back and make a third one. I don't care if it's direct to video. I'd still fucking watch it.
I would too. How would you do a third one though?
I don't know, because I could be wrong on this, but I thought I read not too long ago that she had a different idea for a sequel, and it was going to revolve around Ellie. So, if
her mental or her powers, right? Like,
probably,
shining,
she has to shine.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what the full story was that she was going to go with, but she comes back to do like I said, I don't give a fuck, direct to video sequel about an older Ellie Creed. I'd be fine with that.
And Blaze Birdall could play Ellie again. Why not?
I would say
I,
if Edward Furlong was still doing stuff, he could
well,
come back too, and they could like duo partner up.
nah. But yeah, why not do that? Although did Rose the Hat get her? I mean, that's the question. And all that time.
I was actually thinking about that last night when I was watching
That
Pet
was
Sematary 2. My mind just kind of wandered. I'm like, oh yeah.
I
that
wonder
would
if
be
there's a
cool if the
script
True
there.
Knots showed up to get Ellie.
Yeah.
That's that movie did not make any money. That's why there's not another Pet Sematary
Yeah.
movie. It made $17 million in 1992, which ended 22% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I like it though, man. It's a fun movie. There's some cheesy things in it, like what's Edward Furlong's kid, Jeff's mom at the beginning is a horror actress, and the way she dies and all, and the ending is kind of silly. And then there's a part where Anthony Edwards is sleeping with the wolf dog Zowie and has beautiful, perfect breasts,
Ow.
but. Yeah, but Keith's right though. What's his name?
Clancy
Steals
Brown.
the show. Clancy Brown. I love Clancy
Mr.
Brown.
Krabs.
He's
The Krabs.
What's Mr. Krabs?
He
What is
voices Mr. Krabs.
On SpongeBob. He's the one singing the theme song.
that? He played Lex Luthor in the
Kurgan.
Justice League show and the Superman show. Clancy Brown, and plus he was in Highlander and all that. He's in a lot of good stuff.
He's in Shawshank.
Dude, Shawshank, yeah. But yeah, the second one's fun, man. I don't know why anybody wouldn't like that movie. What is that?
Yeah, what was that, Jared?
The CD that finally got done burning.
Are you cooling it off?
It's like
I'm here from 1999.
Anybody watching want one of Jared's new mix CDs?
He's sending me one. It better have our song on it too.
Oh yeah.
By the way, has anybody seen the documentary?
Which
Yeah,
is
I
State
watched-
Almost Fire by.
Yeah, I watched that this week too.
Man, what a great documentary. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
I'll have to watch
This
that.
is. I think it's on Shudder. Is it on Shudder?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's
I
on.
wouldn't know.
No, it was on Tubi or one of those. You can rent it, but I saw it free on one of those.
What's it called?
It's called
Called
Unearthed and Untold: The Path to Pet Sematary.
That's cool.
It's absolutely fantastic, and I suggested any fan of the series or the movie, the first movie anyway. They talk about everything you could possibly think of, including what's.
Thing.
Oh yeah, man, you got to check it out. Including what Stephen King went through after he wrote the book. Apparently, he wrote the story and put it in his desk drawer. Didn't want to show it to anyone because it was too dark.
It's too dark and scary, and
Yeah.
he only got it published because he owed a book to Doubleday or
Yeah.
right before he left, and so he just went ahead and gave him that.
I think Pet Sematary is my favorite Stephen King adaptation. I know The Shining is probably the best, but I think this is my favorite overall.
It's a tough
If we're
one.
talking book to film, it's probably my favorite.
I think in general, I mean, any Stephen King movie that has been put on film, I think this is my favorite one. I gotta think about it for a second. I know The Shining is probably one of the two, but Pet Sematary and The Shining are definitely my favorites. And then every time I watch Pet Sematary, I get to where I like it a little bit more each time. And we've grown 30 years with these characters of Lewis and Rachel, depending on how many times you watched, which I've watched it a lot. And I like them more and more. Even if Dill Midkiff is a little cardboard, I still like him quite a bit.
I love him at the end of the movie though when he gets church and he's like, "Go on, play dead, be dead." The way he says that.
Yeah.
Be dead.
Yeah.
He does a really good job in that scene. The look on his face, the cadence of it is after he says "be dead," it's like he's totally nuts. At that point. It's like what he has to go in, where he's going, and what he's going to do when he goes in that place.
Well,
that
he's
house.
gone at that point, and like I like whenever the last thing we see is Rachel come back, and she is messed up.
Yeah,
And
she looks
he
great.
Does not hesitate.
She's
bit.
sexy looking.
He starts Frenching her right away. That glue comes out of her eye. It's like fuck, man, that's love.
I watched this.
That was
I watched this with my friend who'd never seen it. And like when it was done, he was like, "This movie pissed me off. I liked it, but it pissed me off." He's like, "This guy's a dumbass." He was like, he brought the cat back and it was fucked up. But then he puts his kid in there and then he's fucked up. But then he puts his wife in there. He's like, what the hell is happening?
He's easily influenced by, like what Nate said, his father figure, Judd. Judd really influences him. And I got to tell you, I think it's the accent.
I'll go
down that road.
So damn wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
Damn road.
The brown sour. Brown sour.
That is better.
I remember growing up, I wish I could understand half the stuff. Cause like, what, soul of a man's heart, Estonia. Like, what the hell is Estonia? Like, Stonier.
And we didn't. Yeah, I know. It's like me when I listen to music and I hear, in songs you hear them say different things than they actually say because they sing it. I always thought the Judge is the same way. He's like he's singing a song, and I can't understand what the hell he's saying. We didn't talk about the scene where he breaks down at the table after Gage dies.
I made it kill your son. Yeah.
It's like, you goddamn right.
I'm just happy. I'm just happy they went with. I know Mary wanted Fred, and they were kind of apprehensive because of the Munsters and all that. But he really is so good in this film. Like, he is just like everybody is. I mean, not other than Bill, but even like little Blaze is phenomenal, and of course Miko.
Oh, she's great. Yeah.
At just 2.5 years old, and then what's her name? Denise is
Crosby.
pretty. Denise is pretty good, especially when she tells the Zelda story because it's so powerful. She is so good in that scene.
And these are the things that make you care about these characters.
Yeah.
Her storytelling and the trauma that she faced, and Judd telling the stories from the past about his dog Spot. There's so much to these characters that they only takes a couple minutes of screen time. They didn't even touch on some of this shit, in the remake.
That documentary, that documentary had me tearing up when the actress who played, what's her name, the nanny or the maid, Missy, where she hangs herself, and she was talking about filming that scene and how she had to be there. She thought about that her character was taking care of her mother who was dying of cancer, and she was going to see her mama, is what she was saying. So she said, I remember being up on this table with the rope around my neck, and I think I actually said mama, like, I'm coming to you, mama. And that's what her motivation was, like, oh my God, like, that's what she did to get herself there for that scene. And then they talked about how Mary, or somebody told her to go see it in the theater, and when they did, like, all these teenagers were yelling, jump, bitch, or something like that, to broke her heart. But
those 1989 teenage rascals.
Yeah. But that out of that documentary, that part just killed me when she talked about that. I heard what she used to get in that headspace.
Yeah, and I wish they would have been able to find a way to add her, but at the pace of the remake, there's no way to do it. The remake, I think that's the problem. A lot of the problem is pacing, because they wanted to get to their different ending.
It also gives you a town. Like, there's no, like, there's very isolated. There's no other characters other than these people in the remake. Whereas the sequel, I mean, we got to know her parents. We got to see Missy. We got to know Pascal a lot more. I want to talk about, like, the first time you guys saw it, because I remember watching this for the first time and just how certain moments just like, oh, I mean, I remember when Pascal shows up completely terrified. Like, it was so creepy to see a ghost, the way he looked, the way he sounded with that echoing voice in the middle of the night. The crickets are real loud, and all of a sudden the crickets stop, and you hear him, come on, Doc, we got places to go. And I remember that was so creepy. And him walking down the path in the fog. Like, I remember just so creepy.
I like that. He kind of has like a charisma to his voice, like when he talks to people. Like, it's kind of got like an upbeat tick at the end of everything he says.
As he rots.
It's like it juxtaposes in the remake. It's very just classic haunting ghost thing. Mm-hmm. Whereas Brad Greenquist plays the part with you're creeped out, but you like him. He's fun.
He's still a person.
He's got personality, yeah. And He is an angel. He said, like, on his script in the documentary, he said on his script he had images of angels that he taped or pasted to remind himself that he's playing an angel. So he played the part as like an angel. He just happens to have this head wound and these pale eyes and scary look. But he's playing basically a guardian angel trying to save this family and save Lewis from damnation, really. And I think that's what's so interesting about it is that juxtaposition of this scary ass image who's actually there to help you and save you and is fun. He's actually funny to listen to.
Yeah.
And again, personality.
Yeah, and he tried every outlet he could in the movie. He went through Lewis, who wasn't listening, and I think a big part of that is when they left for the holiday and he was left in isolation, like we talked about, and then he tried reaching through the daughter Ellie, and that didn't work, and then eventually Rachel, and she was too late at that point. But
and that whole realization of him talking to her and little Ellie trying to say, Dad was with him and tried to help him when his soul was this I can't remember, and then she realizes it what she was saying, and that's what triggers her. And then that whole journey of her trying to get home, another thing gone from the remake, really, that race the clock feeling, and even Judd saying, "Don't come home, go back, don't come." Whereas in the remake, he's like, "Oh yeah, whatever."
Yeah, and then she's stuck in traffic half the time.
Yeah, and it's like there's no conflict. There's just so much missing from that remake. It just sucks so bad.
One of the other small things they did is make them seem so. The movie takes place, or the story takes place in Maine, and I think the family came from Chicago in the '89 version, and this other one they came from Boston, which isn't that far away considering. Like, I think Rachel had to fly to go see her parents. And that's another thing. Keeping them that far away rather than her being that close kind of helped a little bit as well. Helped Lewis get away with a lot of, also. I don't know if that really mattered to anybody else, but I always thought about that, was how far away she always was.
I do have a question. I might be wrong about it, but in the first one, when I was watching it the other day, does the mom get a ride from the truck driver that hit her son? Because he looks like the same exact person.
It's not the same driver.
No. Okay.
Same trunk company.
Yeah.
That, which is kind of eerie, but yeah, that's not the same guy. I'm sure that guy that hit Gage probably blew his head off. I mean, imagine.
Said in the novel he was contemplating suicide.
Yeah.
Lewis was like, "Good, do it." Yeah.
There's a lot that I seriously. How cool would it be if there was a mini series with all the stuff in the novel, or a sequel that skips over the remake, like the Halloween series is doing.
Did you notice in the remake when the truck driver gets a phone call from the text that distracts him? It's from Sheena.
Yeah.
From Sheena as a punk rocker.
She's a punk rock.
Yeah.
Now this movie, I was just looking. It made $112 million on like a $20 million budget, maybe less than that, budget wise, and it said possible future of another movie. So I wonder if they're going to carry on and make a sequel to this remake, which I don't.
They talked about a prequel, didn't they?
Was it a prequel or a sequel?
Prequel.
I think I heard something about a prequel being
prequel, sequel. Prequel.
I don't need that either. I don't need any more.
Like I thought maybe they'd do the Baderman story or something.
Say prequel would make more sense because I have no clue how they do a sequel to that.
Yeah, they were talking about that before the movie came out.
Zombie Family sequel.
They should just make a sequel and remake the sequel.
Or what?
And still cast Clancy Brown. Why not?
What if they went like way back and did like the beginning of the Pet Sematary and like the burial ground, get more into like the Wendigo stuff.
I don't think we need to see any more Pet Sematary surrounding the remake. I don't know about you guys. I don't need to see any more. I didn't want a remake in the first place. I think the first one was damn near perfect as far as an adaptation, a decent movie, and I think it got better with age. But because Nate was talking about the
I
first time he saw it,
mean,
I don't remember the first time I saw it. I'm pretty sure I was balls deep in Nightmare on Elm Street stuff. And Friday the 13th, it just kind of didn't register for me as scary ever.
well, it
It
came
never
out.
really was scary for me.
It was
89
like the
at
perfect
the end
time
of it.
for me for it because I got into horror in '88 at 12, so it came out the very next year. So I was 13, heavily into horror at that point. I remember Fangoria coming out and having the picture of Judd with the cut mouth and on the cover, and um, it just was a genuinely scary film. A great soundtrack. It does have, it has that Stephen King melodrama into it that could date it a little bit. So maybe that's why. But again, I think the melodrama worked as opposed to the new one. It has like no personality at all. I'm sorry to drag on it, that I don't like dragging it, um, but just watching the two back to back and watching it over and over, it's like God, and listen to the book and wow, man, it's such a great story. It's one of those. I mean, of course, it's based on the monkey's paw, which has been used so many times. I've actually used that twice on two of my films. One that I hadn't written, but A Wish for the Dead was based on. We had to do a zombie. It went back to when I was doing comics in the early 2000s, and the guys I was working with wanted to do a zombie tribute to George Romero, and we all had to do an 8-page zombie short that we had to write and draw. And I just like I don't want to do the whole thing where zombie people are in a place with zombies outside and they're fighting their way out. I want to attack. So my first thing was like, oh, what brought them back? Because what brings the dead back? Is it biblical? Is it toxic waste? Is it what is it? A virus? And I tried to think of what was scary, and I pulled influence from the monkey's paw, and especially the Tales from the Crypt story, the one from the '72 film and the comics, where the wife wishes for money, her husband dies, she wishes him back to life before the accident, finds out he died of a heart attack before the accident, so he's still dead. So she wishes him alive forever, but he's been bombed, so he's in this total agony, and she can't kill him because he can't die. And so to me, it was like the realization that I'm dead and I can't be released from my pain. Like if you were in constant pain, they touched on that in like Return of the Living Dead, the pain of being dead, it hurts. And they did it in the remake too. I don't know if they did it in the book or the original movie, but Ellie talks about, there's in the remake. I will give them I think Ellie talks about how painful it is or how shitty it is to be dead. Like, I don't want to be here. You cursed me to this. You cursed me to a life of pain and suffering. And I love that line where Rachel tells Lewis, "Don't bury me in there. Don't bury me up there." What's going on with Seth?
He looks
You all right,
concerned.
Seth? But yeah, that whole thing, like, don't bury me up there. So, A Wish for the Dead was about that. Like, what if someone wished death away and the whole world was damned and death didn't come because it was a film about loss. And that's what Pet Sematary is about. It's about dealing with loss and not letting go of people. And sometimes dead is better, that kind of thing. So I've touched on that a lot. And I think that's one of the biggest fears I have. And when I write my stuff, I put those horrors in there. Like, what if I lost my child, or what if my child lost me? That's a very adult parent feel. Going back to Seth's article about how do these films affect you differently in different stages of your life. When I've had a couple situations where I thought I was going to die, and all I could think about was my daughter, and I'm not going to be there for her, or what, and to protect her, to help her. What's that going to do to her? Or that's such a thing. Or what would happen if I lost her? So it's. I think that's why this film is separated from, because it is so family oriented. It's so about that bond and relationships, and this is a story where pretty much almost everyone dies in it, which is very uncommon, I think, in a lot of these films. You see it in slasher films. You're going to see a bunch of teenagers die, no one cares. But this is a family we get to know and love, and everyone but the daughter dies by the end of it.
That's why
traumatic.
character development is so important, as you're saying, and is you do get, and that's why the remake doesn't work, because everybody does die except for Gage, who shouldn't. He has no right being there. By the way, they left the Ellie in the remake back with her parents. Why'd they leave Gage? Didn't they leave Gage? She's racing off to save her husband, and
We get that little shiny nod in the movie. There's a lot of nods to Stephen King's work in the remake, and that's she's in the I think she's in the bathroom or in a room, and Ellie's banging against the door. The zombies, Ellie, and she puts Gage out the window, like Wendy
just
put
like,
Annie out the window.
Just like
And
The
then
Shining.
And then in The Shining, where it's, instead of red rum, he's on Pascal, 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 Pascal. So there's a lot of Stephen King nodding going on. There's the Cujo thing. I think Judd is mentioning Saint Bernard at the birthday party, having rabies because it was supposed to be because they're. And then there's there's another mention from a Stephen King story. Or there's like Derry. There's a sign for Derry when she's in the traffic jam, like 20 miles to Derry.
Which made me wonder if in some way all these newer adaptations are connected in some way. Which, as a fan of like the Marvel and stuff, you're like, oh my god, does that mean that it is connected to Pet Sematary now?
Yeah, well, I mean, King's books are all kind of connected through the Dark Tower.
Yeah, the Dark Tower, which
different beams, and
I wish that would have been better and it could have gone more places.
But a lot of his different books do connect. There's like a lot of the Castle Rock stuff. Like the cop from Cujo I think he was in the Dead Zone. He was a cop in the Dead Zone, and he had Johnny help him out in Castle Rock. And then in like the Dark Half, they talk about how Ellen Pangborn was the replacement for the sheriff who got killed by the dog. And a lot of his stuff does connect.
He loves Maine.
I would definitely take a King cinematic universe.
That's another thing to mention about it. I think this was the first one shot in Maine, wasn't it? First movie. Like he insisted that they shoot it in Maine, which would have cost a lot because most of it was shot over in like Washington and California. Because
the
expensive to shoot in Maine.
They still have a lot. They show. I think that the house is still there from the original, and they had to build a facade on Judge's house right across the street, but they used all that was in like right by each other, I believe, and they used a lot of town folk from that town in Maine. Like Judd as a kid was from town, and a few of the other characters. I don't know if Missy was or not, but I know that a few of the people in the movie.
No, Missy was a professional actress.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that they used a lot of people from the town.
Yeah. I was watching a video earlier yesterday or today of a guy doing a tour of the sites, and the house still looks the same. The Creed house, and he went to the rock quarry. He went to where the Mac burial ground was. He went to the city hall, which was the college where Lewis worked. He went. I don't know if he went to the actual where the Pet Sematary was. Actually, yeah, he did. He did go where the Pet Sematary shot was. But yeah, I was shocked to see a lot of it was still there and not touched, like or changed. Like the house, especially. A lot of houses change over the years.
Well, that's cool.
I would love to go up there to see it.
Now, even more so, just give Mary Lambert some money, a camera, and just have her go to Pet Sematary 3.
Do people live in it, or is it just there?
Yeah, some really old people live in the house, I believe, the Creed house.
Yeah, they own both houses, the Creed house and the house that Judd, they built the facade around. Was all theirs. And then, like I said, that whole, the lake right there where they do the picnic with flying the kite, that's all there. I was reading something earlier about a guy who went to see the real Pet Sematary that inspired where Stephen lived when he was inspired to write the story. Because so much of this really happened. Like his cat Smucky was killed in the road. They moved to the house. Trucks came up and down the road a lot. And
His
then
son
his
nearly got
youngest
hit, though.
son,
Yeah,
he almost got hit. He pulled him out right last
that's
second.
what really got him going, I think.
Yeah. So, and going back to that scene with Gage, one thing I wanted to touch on when he's running to save Gage is the most devastating part, other than his reaction to me, is when he falls. When he's just about to get the Gage, you see him fall. At that point, as a parent, you know it's over. I haven't saved him. Like that mistake, that one little
That trip. Yeah,
that trip, it's over. There's no way to save him at this point. So that, to me, as Lewis is falling down, he knows it, and it's like a horrible realization as a parent.
You can see it in his face a little
I
bit.
failed.
The actor's face.
Yeah, because my new film touches on this. Is as a parent, your job, your whole existence is protecting your children, to save them, to keep them from being hurt. The failure that that's your job, and you failed. So how do you cope with that? How do you deal with that? How do you handle that? How do you know how to live and continue? And again, be like Jared was saying, very zombie-like. How, like I said, I don't know how I would maintain. Like, how would I even go through a daily job or anything when that happened? Like, how can you? And there's things like that in A Wish for Dead where I remember, like, when my grandfather was passed away, the first person I ever lost that really was close to me, and being in a hospital, and you had that dynamic where you're in a hospital and there's people there who are like, they're there because, oh, so and so broke their arm, or whatever it is, they're going to be fine. So nobody's tense or upset or mourning or whatever. But then you got people in the same waiting room or same area who are losing somebody, and like that's all you can think about. And you've got this pain and this thing going on where other people are in there maybe joking and laughing, and it's like, fuck you, how could you laugh? Like, they don't know. And so those are things I touch on, little human moments. Again, like the pictures of Lewis holding the baby, those flashing through his head, the life that's gone, the memories, everything about it. That's what's flashing in him. Like, that's like, Rob Zombie did it effectively, in my opinion, in H2, which, I think it's only in the director's cut where Brad Dourif comes home and finds Annie dead, and he sees, they played home videos of Danielle Harris from when she was like 8 or so, playing with her, like playing around, like as he's remembering his little baby, his little girl, as he's seeing her laying there dead in a bloody mess. That's that human connect, and that's what makes Pet Sematary so strong. Is stuff like that, those little details that we can picture ourselves as Lewis in that moment. He did. I mean, Mary did well, and thank God. I mean, I thought about this because I read that George Romero was supposed to direct Pet Sematary originally, and even Tom Savini was offered it. But I wonder if Mary, having a woman make that movie made a big difference. I don't think Romero would have made the same film.
I could see that.
I do too. I don't think he would have made the same film. I think they mentioned that in that documentary too, though. I can't remember exactly what was said, but I think they do mention why they went with Mary Lambert. She did an excellent job, though, on this movie. And I think George, he probably would have made it his own and thrown some kind of political statement in there somehow, I'm sure, too. It probably would have, we may have gotten the Kubrick effect with Pet Sematary. Who knows, because I don't think George would. How many studio movies did George make? I mean, and this one also, wasn't there a writer's strike, and that's why. Am I thinking of something else? Why Stephen King wrote the screenplay, or am I thinking of something else?
I think he wrote the screenplay years before they produced it, so it was existing. And he was just like really adamant that they had to shoot it in Maine, and they had to use his script, and they had to stick. His script was paramount. There wasn't a lot of wiggle room, and he was there. He only lived like 20 minutes away from where they were shooting it, so he was on set a lot.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll be checking in.
Yeah.
I love that he makes his appearance in the movie too.
Yeah.
I also like the cemeteries they use in that movie. That's morbid to think about too. Well, I like that cemetery.
That's a
I
beautiful
don't.
looking cemetery.
Well, I mean, I have. Never mind. I'm not going to go into that. There might be something wrong with me. I like cemeteries. I don't know. A lot of
I
history.
mean, there is something to be said about cemeteries. They're very peaceful.
Well, that and it's weird to say, but seeing headstones and they can be somewhat serene. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. Being amongst all those dead people, that doesn't make any sense. Being
There's
serene,
something
but
so iconic, recognizable. Like
maybe that's what it is.
I went to the cemetery where in Nightmare on Elm Street where uh, they go to Rod's funeral and
Yeah.
Nancy is sitting there at that building, and me and my wife went out there to that cemetery and took some photos at from the actual spot where they were at in the film, and yeah, I'd like to go to the up to Pittsburgh and go to where the Night of the Living Dead
Yeah,
opens.
me too. Yeah, and there's one here though that's got some great scenery. I think it is iconography that of the headstones and giant crosses on headstones. I don't know, but how did I get to talking about that? I think I blacked out. Like Will Smith and Will Ferrell in Old School. When he's in the debate, he blacks out. I think I just blacked out and started talking about. Pet Cemetery is again. I think it's one of those movies that should have never been touched. And I really like. I think I agree with Seth. I'd love to see Mary Lambert come back and make another. I think she did such a great job, and I don't know that she gets enough credit for the movies that she made, especially because part two, I think a lot of people trash because there is some kind of hokey stuff in it, but overall, it's not a bad movie. I like when he takes the motorbike and puts the kids into it.
And he's just like, oops.
Yeah,
I like the first two acts of part two, but then it's kind of a weird transition. Like all of a sudden, Jeff is all of a sudden working with Clancy Brown,
Yeah,
and
I agree with that.
he's
bring his
all
mom back.
fucking
I
morbid.
love, I
Yeah,
love the song for when Zowie dies.
It feels like there should have been like a scene or two in between when Jeff's friend dies and when all of a sudden Edward Furlong's dressed in a tux and ready to bring back his mom and all that.
Yeah, it did kind of jump to that, didn't it?
Yeah. But I mean, part two is it's a good movie, and I always remembered it because of Clancy Brown. He's definitely one of my favorite actors.
The freaking dinner scene when he's just like shoving mashed potatoes in his freaking mouth.
Yeah, and at the time I saw it too, I really loved it because Edward Furlong was in it and he was fucking John Connor. So
Yeah.
but
for Terminator 2.
Yeah. But
that's when he blew up. Was that around that time, 92, 93?
Yeah. It felt like though it needed like a better script because it was interesting how it was the reversal of the first story where it was a kid grieving the loss of a parent and stuff like that, and it could have been a better movie if it was just I don't know if it had.
I guess that kind of gave it that juvenile feel to it, whereas opposed to like Pet Sematary is a very adult film. From the point of view of Lewis. So to have, teenagers as your main characters going through all the stuff that they go through, being bullied and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's true, but I do think that they could have made it work. I think it could have been a little bit more intense and a little bit more mature, even if it was about a teenager. And I can't take that bully seriously with a scarf.
Yeah. Some of those bullies are so. The bullies are so like yeah. Like there's one I'm watching it. I'm like, does that kid want to fuck him or what? Like he's like staring at, trying to look badass. It's like those movie bully kids, like those actors who probably are big. Like they wouldn't bully anybody ever, and they're like playing bullies in a movie all of a sudden, and they are so unrealistically bullish. I mean, the kid that plays the main bully, he was always good. He was good and overboard and big.
Yeah, I was saying I couldn't take him seriously because I just kept seeing scenes from Big in my head.
But he always had a kind of attitude. He always had he was never like a little cutesy kid.
Yeah.
He calls Josh an asshole and big.
Yeah, and then in Honey I Shrunk the Kids, he was kind of a little smart ass.
Oh, that's
Kind
right.
of
He was
kid.
in that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
And that's his entire filmography.
yeah,
I
pretty
don't
much.
know.
He's like in a band now. I think I looked him up when
Was
we were
he?
doing the Stuart Gordon episode.
But he also kind of looks like the bully from Pet Sim, or not Pet Sematary, from Monster Squad in a bit, in a way too. The guy who
Oh
tries to
yeah,
make the
Kid from
kid
Wonder
eat the
Years.
yeah, and then
Kid
Rudy.
from Wonder
Yeah,
Years.
Yeah,
yeah. He kind of
yeah,
looks like
they
him
have
a
a
little
similar
bit in a
look.
way too. Yeah, blonde hair and goofy looking. Now let me ask you this: would Pet Cemetery 2 have been better if they would have changed the way the mom died and put her in the middle of the road hit by one of those trucks?
yeah.
I was
The,
just
the
thinking about
the
that.
death was a little like goofy. Like it was fine that she's an actress and everything, but they could have gone a different route than electrocution. Like, but I get that like that kind of like made her
I don't know.
body
I think it
not.
was.
But I mean that's the other thing with the first movie. That kid would be mangled to shit. He would not look the way he looks when he comes back. There's no way.
Yeah, one little scar there.
Yeah, that truck would have torn him to
Yeah.
bits.
I do like. I mean, even though Ellie's same way, but like I do love the makeup choice on the remake of giving her that droopy eye makeup.
Yes, I did like that too.
There's and it's, again, she just pulls it off so
Mhm.
well. But she's creepy as shit. I love like some of her
Yes.
She's
physicality
gonna.
after she cuts Judd's
Yeah.
ankle, and she kind of does this kind of slither around the staircase and has that mask on and is talking to him and she does like that was some of the cool things in the remake was when she becomes Norma and use that against him. But I also love where she kills Rachel. It's devastating because she really hits Rachel where it hurts, which is uh, you got us killed. You killed your sister. You
Mhm.
killed like she gets her really where she is and then stabs her to death. And it's like she really pokes at everything that's going on in Rachel all these years. That's her guilt, her that's what this Wendigo is. It's fucking with people's guilt. It's fucking with Judd's guilt. It's hurting you more than just physically. It wants to like just eat you entirely in some way, like eat you up and own you. Um,
Well, isn't it? I can't remember. It's been a while since I read the book, and I know you just listened to it recently. But wasn't it where it was all the deaths that happened with say Church, and then with Gage? Wasn't that really kind of caused by the Wendigo or the
yeah,
presence in the
like
area? Like,
it's kind of like it's got a bite and it still needs more. Like it's
Yeah.
feeding. It's like it's causing these things. It's against what Judd says. I may have killed your son by introducing you to the power because
Yeah.
right.
now you've been
Right.
introduced to it and now it's making things happen. I made like me introducing it to you and you being there has given this power the power to cause things to happen that are going to again feed more to what it's the whole cannibal thing. I guess I don't know if it has to do with Wendigo is about cannibalism or an excuse for it, but like it is powerful, and they do that in the original film too, where there's a shot in the original that tries to do that, but it seems like a mistake. I just noticed it for the very first time. I don't know if anybody else has noticed it, but after Missy hangs herself, because her suicide is supposed to be also influenced by the Wendigo and the power.
Like an offering to the power.
Yeah. So it's causing death. And I think Judd says that too in the Baderman speech about the place gets holier and bad
Mhm.
things. The place is evil. It's a
Yeah.
great speech. I love when he tells us the Baderman story and sometimes dead is better. And it's a great fucking scene. But like the right after she hangs herself, there's an insert shot, or not insert shot, but a cut to the Micmac burial ground from above, and you hear the Wendigo in the background, and then it cuts to the funeral. But like to me, it's like Mary saying, or the editor, whoever the decision it was, to say that was caused by that burial ground. We just saw suicide. It was influenced by this. This thing made that happen. But in that shot, I guess if it wasn't intentional, I don't know why it would be intentional. I think it's just the only fucking shot they had. it's a helicopter shot of the ground from above, but Lewis and Judd are standing there at the edge of it.
It's the old shot.
Yeah, so it's a shot they had. I think it's like, but they're still in the shot. Like they're still like down there, and I never noticed it until I saw it this week, and I went,
Great,
"Hey,
Nathan. Now everybody's going to notice it, Nathan.
yeah, now you're all going to see it and it's be ruined because there's no reason they should be there at that moment." But I think it was just one of those things where, hey, this would be cool. Oh, that's the only shot we have, and we don't have computer animation
Yeah.
to take them out to mask them yet. So, but I just noticed that this week. Little things like that. Like I noticed, like the Cujo, the rabies poster in the school. It has a picture of Saint Bernard and it says rabies. Of course, there's all those little things like 666 on the truck. That's kind of obvious. But I don't know. I really love this film. I do. I think it's one of the best of the '80s. It was a nice break from the slasher stuff that was really dominant of the decade. And I don't think, and it's a classical. It's a Monkey's Paw. It's a classical gothic kind of story.
Yeah, in a way, it was a part of the turning of the tide in horror, with '89 kind of being where everything started to turn into the '90s, where slashers started to die. What does everyone think of the Ramones' Pet Sematary song? How does everybody feel about that? And the cover of it on the if you stayed for the credits in the remake, somebody covered it horribly. I love it. My daughter absolutely loves that Pet Sematary song by the Ramones. She's a Ramones fan now because of it. What do you guys think? That was back in '89. That was the height of seeing movie clips and videos, and they had scenes from Pet Sematary that weren't seen in the trailer and the video for it. So every time that came on, I watched it and I ended up loving the song. I still love the song today. What do you guys think?
I like it. I like the Ramones in general. So
yeah, I love the Ramones. They're one of my favorite. They're my favorite punk band, and yeah, I love that song. And I love. I mean, because it's so much in the novel. Because Lewis keeps hearing Blitzkrieg Bop through the whole novel. He keeps saying, "Hey ho, let's go."
Blitzkrieg Bop.
Constantly touched in the book. And of course, Sheena is a punk rocker that the truck drivers listen to. So
I love that
song. The Ramones are so intricate to. I mean, I know that Stephen King's a big fan of theirs. I know he's a big fan of them and AC/DC and a few bands that have popped up in his films. But I love that. And Mary said that's why she thinks she got the job, because she was friends with the Ramones. She knew them. I think they got to talking about it because she, did all those music videos. That's where she was coming from, doing all Madonna's videos. And she said she had known the Ramones even outside of being in the industry. They were friends of hers.
where are we going from here, boys?
I don't know. We've talked about, all three movies, and very organically too. We didn't just say, "Hey, let's talk about this one, this one, this one."
Yeah, it wasn't cookie cutter.
No, I really like discussing the remake and the '89 together because I haven't really thought about it too much. I've seen the remake. I actually did watch back to back on April Fool's Day, and then I watched Pet Sematary too because I needed a palate cleanser from the remake, and that worked perfectly. Actually, it's funny when I went and saw. Actually have a funny story. When I went and saw the remake in the theater back in last April, I went by myself, and when I go to the theater by myself, you can pick your seats at a lot of these theaters now. And anyway, I pushed myself all the way against the wall so I didn't take up any of the middle seats. I'm very, very nice when it comes to seating at movie theaters.
That's so nice of you.
Yeah, I'm a sweetheart. So anyway, I'm sitting there. I have my drink right here. I got my popcorn. I'm trying to enjoy this non-masterpiece of a movie. And I had my hand. I always have my hand rested on my drink. And there was a good looking woman sitting next to me, and somehow she grabbed my hand and like she was reaching for her drink or something like that, and ended up grabbing my hand and looked at me. I'm like, it seemed like it lasted like 30 minutes. I was like, should I say something? And then I was like, maybe I'll say something after the movie's over, or maybe But no, I didn't. It was just a.
Did she look at you and go, the barrier was not meant to be crossed?
Don't make me tell you twice.
No.
Yeah, around the soil. It was a weird moment, but I'll never forget that. That was better than the movie. That awkward situation.
There were some other things I liked about the remake. I liked the even though Rachel or Zelda's not as frightening, I liked the whole addition of the dumb waiter death of her falling down and breaking her neck. And then Rachel being like hearing her in the walls and being terrified that Rachel's still in the walls is a very creepy thing. For her to all her life to constantly be hearing, if she heard a noise on the wall, she thought it was Rachel coming to get her. That it carried on through her whole life. So I do like that addition. I think there was one other thing I dug.
Zelda really haunts your dreams, man. From the first movie. Holy crap!
I remember when I went to Horror Hound Weekend, like almost everybody was there, and at the same little stretch of table, there was Brad who played Pascal, and Andrew who played Zelda, and Miko who played Gage. They're all sitting there in a line, and the guy next to me was like, "Nightmares." Whole table full of nightmares right here as a child, because all three of them gave them nightmares, and they all started to laugh. And they were really the guy that played Pascal, Brad, is a really nice guy, and even the guy that played Zelda, and of course Miko is too. Dell was a little cold, but like his character, I guess. But I had a lot of fun talking to Brad, the guy that played Pascal. I don't know. He has a real good personality in person as well.
Dale Midkiff looks like a guy who thinks he's a bigger star than he actually is. I mean, I've only seen him in a few roles, like in Love Potion #9, and what is it called? Dr. Jekyll, Ms. Hyde. Have you ever seen that?
I watched that a lot growing up. I had that on VHS.
He's in movies like that, and then Pet Sematary probably is one of his bigger gigs. I think he was in another movie where it was a bigger role, or a bigger movie, but it was a small role. But
he played Elvis on TV, and there's a movie called This Is Elvis, and my mom was a big Elvis fan, so I remember seeing him in that, and she really liked him.
Let me look him up, because I know, like, even Love Potion #9 surprised me. I don't know why I keep talking about that movie. It's a fun movie.
That's the one with Tate Donovan, isn't it?
Yeah. Elvis and Me is the movie I think you're talking about.
Yeah, Elvis and Me. Yeah.
Yeah, let me see his filmography, because there's something that he just popped up, and I'm like, whoa. Oh, I think it was Dexter. He was in an episode of Dexter, is what it was. Think about that for a second. Dexter, who did the voice, or he did the narration for the audiobook. In Dexter.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, man, think about that. I'm going to write a book about how crazy things like that are. I think I'm going to watch Love Potion #9 tonight. No, I don't have it. Dale Midkiff looks like a guy who thinks he probably big leagues people all the time. I'm Dale Midkiff. I was in Pet Sematary and Love Potion #9. Want my autograph? $80. I'm like, oh,
Have we talked about the score in the original? How good that is? Like, has those children sing that kind of that Omen, Amityville vibe? That's always really, creepy.
It's good, but like listening to that and Amityville back to back, it's hard to really pick which one is which, because they sound so similar. So it's hard to say. I mean, I like it, but it does, and I think Children of the Corn had something similar to it too.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So it's like it was kind of by that point a generic, sounding theme. I like it. Don't get me wrong, but it's played in 3 or 4 different movies, very similar. Even Poltergeist, I think.
Oh, another tidbit I heard: the kids doing the opening narration about their pets in the Pet Sematary. One of them is Jonathan Brandis from It.
Really? From Sequest?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Ladybugs.
And Ladybug.
And Neverending Story 2.
So, Chris Hall said, "What no love for the Langoliers movie?"
No.
No.
That was like the it's all gone to shit now.
I mean, there's other, but we're not doing Stephen King episode. That'd be If we did a
That could
Stephen
be
King
a whole
it'd be a
episode on its
three-part
own.
episode. It might be more than one because there's so many good
that'd be a
Stephen
long
King
episode.
projects.
The
Yeah,
90s TV movies, Stephen King movies. I think I'd
Yeah.
probably shoot myself before we got to
Tommy Knockers, Golden Years.
we could do a Stephen King trilogy and
Mick
break
Garris
it up into
collection.
There's one thing about Mick Garris I love, and it's his long silver hair. That's it.
I like him. I think I'm just not a fan of his films.
Most of his stuff is TV work, and it's usually not that great. I mean, Stephen King does have some good, like, not Mick. I'm off Mick Garris now. Stephen King does have some good TVs. I think The Shining's okay. I thought it was okay. They're okay. They're not great. Salem's Lot probably being the best of them all, in my opinion.
The Stand was great.
Wasn't Storm of the Century a TV movie? That was pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I never saw that one. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't network TV, but Night Flyer, I remember it was on cable, and I like Night Flyer a lot.
That's a tough one to get to. Like, I've never seen that, and because if you want to buy it, for instance, it's like $80 for a old ass DVD. So, Scream Factory, I'm looking at you. Bring it out. Nate can do the artwork. There you go.
I'll do it.
Yeah, he'll do it. So, anybody got anything else? We can wrap this up in a tight little bow. We've talked about the Ramones and how great that song was, how stale and cold Dale Midkiff is, and
Pet Sematary.
I mean, Pet Sematary is probably his best performance. I mean, that when Gage gets hit, oh my God, you could see the emotion in that scream.
Oh, that's that shot of him standing in a row with that truck coming at him. It's just.
If he wouldn't have tripped, he would have gotten to him.
Oh God!
You ever think about that?
Go on the road, Lewis.
When he's running and he fucking trips at that last second, he would have gotten to him if he wouldn't have tripped. I always think about that when I watch that movie. It's like he would have gotten him.
Oh that reminds me. I think there was a part in the book where it was kind of like a fantasy that Lewis has where he actually gets Gage in time.
Mm-hmm.
And then he wakes up to the reality of it.
You know,
Mary, go ahead.
I was gonna say I just thought of something, a little maybe foreshadowing when Gage at the very beginning of the movie nearly gets hit by a truck, but Judd scoops him up. Remember that part? I mean, I totally forgot, but that kind of.
And there's foreshadowing of it too. In there's the beginning of the part where Gage is playing with his toy truck and runs into the table or something. Goes, uh-oh. He goes, uh-oh. But yeah, like I think Mary Lambert touched on it. It's true. Like talked about what if I had grabbed them? What if I'd snatched them up? Mm-hmm. When bad things happen, we do that. We think, oh, what if I hadn't gone there that day? Or what if I had waited an hour? Or what if I wasn't late? Or what if, like, the what ifs that would have prevented these bad things to have happened. So yeah, that makes sense that Lewis would be like thinking about what if I did, imagining what if I had caught him, what if I had pulled him away.
What ifs are my whole life anymore.
Yeah.
Well, let's do final thoughts. What do you guys think? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not everybody at once. Not everybody at once. Jared, how about you? You got some final thoughts on Pet Sematary series?
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen the sequel. I mean, so I really didn't have a whole lot to say about that.
It's on Amazon Prime.
Oh, cool. I was able to watch the remake not too long ago, and I thought the ending was kind of a refreshing change to the story, even though you knew like pretty much everything building up to.
It's raining again. Sorry.
Is it raining?
It's been raining all week.
Same here.
And it's Tuesday.
I thought it was kind of a refreshing change, the ending at least. Like we kind of already like gone over all the aspects we didn't like about the movie, but I thought the ending was kind of refreshing.
I just wish they wouldn't have spoiled it in the trailers. And studios are getting bad about that. Adam Driver, who I actually think is probably one of the finest actors of our generation right now. And you know what? He's weird looking, but somehow I'm attracted to him. I don't know what it is. Anyway, sorry.
What made you bring him up?
No. So when The Last Jedi was at Celebration, well, hold on. I'm not going to badmouth The Last Jedi. When they were getting ready to release the movie, he said he thinks they should release a trailer. I'm like, I'm with you a little bit because these days they're really like giving away way too much in trailers. Like when I saw that Pet Cemetery trailer, I was like, motherfucker! They just
Yeah.
gave away the twist, just like Terminator Genesis, which is
Yeah.
another movie with Jason Clarke.
Yeah.
Maybe Jason Clarke should
I
not
just-
be in movies.
I just wonder like how Dennis and Scott felt when they saw that trailer, if they had anything to do with it, because as a filmmaker, you do so much to trick and to keep things
Yeah.
secret. And they do so much to set up to throw you off with Gage almost getting hit
Mhm.
and you getting saved. They're like, what? Like it would have came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
No.
and that's something that would have like. How much different would you feel about the movie today if you saw the movie not knowing that there was a change in the killing? You know, if you didn't see Ellie being killed coming, you know what I'm saying? Like if they would have kept that secret, and also the truck wreck was way more horrific than it was originally because of it almost hits Gage and it like jackknives or whatever they call that. I think I would probably like the movie a lot better not knowing that going in. And I wish that studios would stop doing that.
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
They did that to me
Final-
with Civil War.
Keith, final thoughts.
I only this is probably like the third time I've seen this movie. Again, we've talked about how it affects different people. I don't have kids. I mean, it doesn't impact
You are
me.
a kid.
Yeah, sure. Whatever you want to say.
You know what?
Like,
We're gonna
I'm
we're gonna
almost in my mid-20s.
we're gonna redo that scene, and you're gonna be Gage, and I'll be Lewis, and we'll have Nate be Judd. And
Uh-oh.
since Jared's got the best hair, he gets to be Rachel. And Seth
I'll
gets to be
get
Ellie.
I get his t-shirt collection.
Yeah. But the thing is, you got to be hit by trucks. Keith, so
I
the
don't
game will
want
be
that
in
shirt,
Indianapolis at the horror convention.
Oh,
No, I'm joking. Anyway, go ahead.
no, but like this movie doesn't affect me as much as it does other people. There's things that I like. I mean, I love Judd. 'Cause I grew up watching the Munsters a lot, so just him in it like warms my heart. Just hearing him talk and everything.
Monsters and Riflemen marathons.
Shut up. No, I like the movie, but I feel like the second one like connected with me more. It's like again because it's younger children. Clancy Brown's like actual character, like as a father, like that relates with me. He's a giant douchebag. But number two is just more fun for me. But I think it's again, I don't connect with the first one the way Ray, Nathan, and Seth do because you guys have kids and know how that feels, and I don't.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. I mean, I was 12 when 2 came out. Man, I freaking loved it when I saw it for the first time. I really did. Nate, what about you? Final thoughts on Pet Sematary?
Ooh, you already said it's my favorite book of Stevens. I hated it when it ended. I never was so bummed that a book ended. And the film, I think it should be on a top 10 of the 80s horror list. I think it's probably, other than The Shining, it's probably my second favorite Stephen King movie. Even if the lead is stiff, it's everything else around that is strong. Really, really strong. We didn't talk about his whole rolling out of bed and hitting his face.
I know.
God. And I think that it sounded like somebody said that was actual, like he actually hit it. It wasn't planned. But,
One take.
Yeah, like that's all you get. I'll give him kudos for sticking to the scene.
Yeah.
God damn it! But yeah, again, so thankful for the film, for giving us something other than Herman for Fred Gwynn on film.
I honestly don't even think of him as Herman. I think of him as.
I don't. Yeah, he's so wonderful in it. I wish he had gotten to do more, or like had more film roles that people. I mean, I watched Car 54, Where Are You? Reruns, and My Cousin Benny and all that. Of course, there's another one that people remember. And honest with the remake, I think a lot of the problems are in that we're comparing it to the book and we're comparing it to the original film, which is really hard because, again, we're talking about a great, great book and a great film. And they tried to do something new with it and redo it. And they tried to go their own way, like I think most artists should. I think a remake should try to be something of its own and not just be a carbon copy. So, because what's the point? I think if we weren't so married to the original and the book, and we watched it for its own merit. I don't think it's a bad movie. The actors aren't bad in it. The direction isn't bad. Just the problems I have with it are the choices, the things that they eliminated that make that so good. So I think if it was an original film, it would have been a good film. I really, again, I think the little girl is phenomenal. Her turn and the whole storyline of now we get to be with this thing that's not his daughter, but is you know, like it's a disturbing thing. It's even more disturbing than what we got. It's a very that's when I remember, when that switch happens, then it becomes a better movie because it's something new, it's something different. Every the way everybody reacts to her is different. The way Judd immediately goes to grab his gun, like he's ready to kill because he knows it's not Ellie. So yeah, so I don't hate the remake. I don't think it's one of the bad remakes. I just don't. Again, I think a few things they shouldn't have cut out. They should have left in. They should have built more relationships between characters instead of rushing to get to that switch. I think is what it was. Like they rush the very important character development and relationship development to get to it. Other than that, my daughter dressed up as Ellie for Halloween last year in that costume with a mask and had a blast. Walked around Horror Hound in that costume. And it's great. It's a great costume. It's a great character for little girls to play who are into horror because there's not a lot. Like she was Danielle Harris in Halloween 4 one year, and then like trying to scratch her head on what else she could do. And it's like, what about Ellie in Pet Sematary? It's a great look.
She did Nancy too, didn't she?
We did that for fun. I talked about Reagan and
listen. At least your daughter's doing stuff like that. My daughter wants to be the damn tall man. So
that's so cool, though. I can't wait to see her as a tall man.
Her and Reynolds gonna do a Little Rascals, just like get on top of each other.
I don't know what if that's gonna go through, but you have anything else you want to add to that, Nate?
No, it's just a great film. I'm glad I got to revisit the book after 30 years, and even though I didn't have time to actually read it, I was going to read it, but my copy I think is on my film set that I can't get to because we've shut everything down, and I don't want to go over there.
How many hours are the audiobooks?
It was like 15 hours.
Oh, that's
I was listening to it on the way to work and at work.
I've listened to the Hobbit audiobook and Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. Just for fun, I made a top 15 horror movies of '89, and number 10 was Sleepaway Camp 3. Then Shocker was number 9. Puppet Master, House of Clocks, Warlock, The Church, Parents, Intruder, Society, and number 1 was Pet Sematary. So
yeah, it's definitely the best of that year.
All right, Seth, what about you? Final thoughts?
Okay.
Oh, okay, maybe.
Yeah. Well, like Nate said, I don't hate the remake. It isn't bad on a technical level. I just wish that they did better with the character relationships. I'm not going to repeat that point. So, other than that, I love the book. I think it's one of Stephen King's best books. Not his best. There's so many good ones to choose from. It's hard to say, but it's a very engaging read. And I love the first movie. I think it's probably the best adaptation we're ever going to get of that book. The sequel it's fun. I enjoy it. I don't hold it on the same level as the original. But as a kid, that was my favorite growing up. Yeah, I think it's a great story, and it's definitely an emotional story, and I just thought it was funny how differently I watch it now, since becoming a father, and that's pretty much why I chose this topic for tonight.
Well, I'll add to that by urging everybody to go check out thehorrorsyndicate.com. Changing Perspectives, Viewing Pet Sematary Since Becoming a Parent, that Seth wrote. It's a good. I posted at the bottom in the links or in the comments here, so go check that out. And I have no final thoughts. I think Pet Sematary is great through and through. The remake just was underwhelming, very much, and Again, character development. And the Ramones remake of the Pet Sematary song was terrible. Those are my final thoughts.
Okay.
So we'll be back on Thursday. And honestly, I don't think we have a topic at this point. So if anybody has any suggestions for a topic, please leave them in the comments.
Doing the urban legend ghost story?
We're gonna put that off a little bit. I'm not ready for that.
Okay.
Because that's my topic. I'll maybe we'll if we can't come up with something, we can do Jared's topic of what was it again, Jared?
Guilty pleasures.
Guilty pleasures.
I want a little more
more time.
More time on
Okay,
that
maybe
one.
we'll do a fan vote. If not, I'll just piss into the wind and we'll just kind of free flow on Thursday. But we'll be back on Thursday about same time. And thanks for joining us for Keith, Nate, Jared, and Seth. We'll see you on Thursday. Stay safe and out of the rain.